How you doing there? All right. Well. So what daf are we doing today? Daf Ayin Hey. Ayin Hey. Ayin Hey. Ooh. All right, Chevy. All right. So let me tell you something about daf Ayin Hey. Let me tell you something about daf Ayin Hey. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. Chevy, these next few days are going to be, I don't exactly know where we're starting, where we're stopping. I don't know, maybe it'll be normal, maybe it won't. Chevy, last night I had to go to a chasana. And so be'etzem, it's tricky to fit a chasana into my very delicate schedule. So I had to, so I reviewed this daf, or at least as far as I got on this daf, in a combination of light rails and chuppahs. And even then, I didn't quite get through the whole thing. There's still quite a bit that I didn't get through. So I think I'm going to record this daf in 2 sittings. I think that's what I'm going to do. It was a very Haredi wedding. And everybody was like on top of each other. I'm kind of more used to a type of wedding where I could find some quiet place and nobody's around. And I just, ideally jump into a groove or something and learn the daf. But here everybody was kind of very tzafuf. So, yes, I had to ignore everybody with it. It's more complicated when there's a lot of people around. So, yeah. Basically, the only person I saw over there was my cousin, Menachem. He's a very quiet guy also. Nobody else saw me there, so. But I'll tell you also this, nobody else looks like me over there. Nobody else. I was the only person who looks like me. So, maybe they noticed there was somebody who doesn't quite fit. And they're like, oh, that's really, and they noticed I was there, checked that off. And so we're starting daf Ayin Hey, and okay, we're going to start on daf Ayin. So we got some work to do on daf Ayin Daled and Beis. I think maybe it's an interesting daf. It kind of, you know what I'm saying, like that kind of a thing. Hopefully I reviewed it well enough on the light rail and at the chuppah, and okay. I have a little bit of coffee left over from earlier, cold coffee, which is nice. All right. Let's go weiter. So, we're going to start the Mishnah. And yesterday's daf was mamash a daf, right? It was a whole hour. We didn't even finish the daf. If I would have pushed us a little further, we would have gone over the hour mark. And I don't know. It's hard for me to tell if this daf is also going to be like a long daf, because it's a big daf. I didn't review. Normally I review it, and I can know based on how I review it how long it takes me, But this was like here, stop and go. So I don't even know if it's a long daf. It's a relatively interesting daf within the context of what we consider to be interesting around here. All right, we're gonna start on daf Ayin Daled and Beis at the Mishnah. Gonav apishnayim ho. So if you have a guy, he steals, and let's just use Shimon and Reuven, I guess. So Shimon steals from Reuven, and there are 2 witnesses who testify that Shimon stole an ox from Reuven. V'tovach u'mocher al pi eid echod, and then one witness says that Shimon then proceeded to tovach u'mocher it. O al pi atzmo, or he himself admitted that he tavacht or mochert. So, mishalim tashlumei kefel ve'eno, mishalim tashlumei daled ve'hei. So he pays kefel because witnesses testified that he stole. But in terms of daled ve'hei, you only have one witness who said that he tavach u'mochert it. Or he himself is admitting that he tavacht or mochert, and therefore there's no daled ve'hei. Gonav v'tovach b'Shabbos, if he stole an ox and slaughtered it on Shabbos. Gonav v'tovach lavei dezorah, if he stole an animal and slaughtered it for the getchkis. Gonav v'tovach mishel oviv umeis oviv, if he stole an ox from his father, and then his father, umeis aviv, so then his father died, and then after his father died, and he be'etzem, inherits his father along with the rest of his brothers. So then he slaughtered it. Gonna v'hikdish, if he stole and then he was makdish, he makes it hekdish. And then he tavach der machard. So in all of these scenarios, there's kefel, but there is no dalid v'hei. Okay, fine. Okay. Reb Shimon Omer says, Reb Shimon kachim shchai b'achrayuson mishalem tashlumi dalid v'hei she'ein chai b'achrayuson potter. The Gemara is going to explain what this means. But it says Reb Shimon that when it comes to kodshim, so if it's if he makes a neder, for example, he says, "I'm going to bring a korban," and then he chooses this animal. So if something happens to the animal, so then he would have to bring a different animal because he said he committed to bringing a korban, regardless of any particular animal. So that would be chayiv b'achrayuson. So we say mishalem tashlum dalad v'hei. There would be dalad v'hei there, but she'ein chayiv b'achrayuson. But for example, in a dava where it says I'm going to bring this animal as a korban, and if that animal is gone, so then he obviously can't bring it as a korban anymore, and there's no longer any requirement for him to obligation for him to bring a korban. So then he would be potter. The Gemara is going to have to explain what the scenario is for that. Chevre, I'm going to chap a shtickle more coffee. Okay, I think I'm basically out of coffee now. Okay, now we start today's daf. It's an interesting daf. Remember we talked about complex versus detailed? BavaKama is complex. I think complex is nice. I think maybe that is what I'm enjoying about BavaKama. BavaKama is complex. Maybe that's pshat. But other things are complex too. BavaKama is just gewaldig, right? Let's go weiter. Says the Gemara, Apir echod pshita uah. Chaver, you hear this? This is gewaldig. So the Mishnah had said that if two witnesses testify that Shimon stole Reuven's ox, and then one witness testifies that he tavach umachard it. So pshita, obviously, he will be potter from dalad v'hei. It's only one witness. Samriya kamash malon. Al pi atzmo, dumya al pi erechel. Chaver, this is geschmack. Ein achinami. Yeah, it is obvious that if one witness testified that he tavach umachard, he would not be chayiv. He would be potter from dalad v'hei. That's not the chiddush, right? That's obvious. But the chiddush is for when he admits on his own that he tavach umachard it. So again, moed b'knas is potter. But here's where things get interesting. So, a kamashma al pi atzmo, that when he himself admits that he tavach umachard and he's potter from dal v'hei, but it's dumya da al pi eid echad, it's similar to when one witness testifies that he tavach umachard. Ma al pi eid echad, just like when there's one witness who testifies that he tavach umachard, Ki osi eid acher mitztarif ba'adei mechayev. So just like, if there's one witness who testifies that he tavach umachard, so then it's irrelevant because it's only one witness. But if a second witness comes and also testifies that he tavach umachard, now the second witness joins with the first witness, and already now it's a different story, and he will be chayev. Dalad v'hei. So al pi atzmo nami oichit, when it comes to al pi atzmo, when he himself admits that he tavach umachard it. So moed b'knas is potter, but ki osu eidim, if witnesses come, i.e. moed b'knas v'achar kach bo eidim, if eidim come afterwards, michayev, he is now going to be chayev for dalad v'hei. Okay, so just like, yes, of course, if one witness testifies that he tavach umachard, he's going to be potter from dalad v'hei, but if another witness now joins that first witness, he'll be chayiv dalad v'hei. So oichit, when he himself admits that he tavach umachard, so moed b'knas is potter, but if then afterwards witnesses come, he's going to be chayiv because Moda B'Knas v'achakach Bo Edim is chayiv la'afuke mid Rav Huna Amarav. Unlike Rav Huna Amarav, the Rav Huna Amarav, Moda B'Knas v'achakach Bo Edim potter. Wait, what the heck did I just say? Right? I hope I didn't say the wrong thing. The Mishnah is saying that Moda B'Knas v'achakach Edim is chayiv, okay? But that's unlike Rav Huna, who says in the name of Rav that Moda B'Knas v'achakach Bo Edim is potter, right? So our Mishnah is saying that just like if one witness testifies that Titavach Umachard, and then that witness is joined by a second witness, so then he will be chayiv d'alevei. So oichit, if he himself admits that Titavach Umachard, so he's going to be potter. Moda B'Knas is potter. But if two witnesses come after that, so then he's going to be chayiv because Moda B'Knas v'achakach Bo Edim chayiv, unlike Rav Huna Amarav who says Moda B'Knas v'achakach Bo Edim potter. Givaldik. And now we are going to get into, maybe even for the rest of the day, I care, because remember, I only properly, I hope properly, let's say, normally I review properly. Right, I set aside 1, 2, sometime hopefully not 3 grooves, 1 or 2 grooves a day, and I properly focus and review the daf. But that was not the case yesterday. But I think as far as I got in my review, we're talking about the sugya of Moda B'Knas v'achakach Bo Edim. Okay, so now Gufa, we had said earlier, Rav Huna Amarav Moda B'Knas v'achakach Bo Edim potter. Okay, so we just said that says Rav Huna Amarav that Moda B'Knas v'achakach Bo Edim potter. Here we go. Are you ready? Eisvei Rav Chisda le Rav Huna. So Rav Chisda asks a kasha to Rav Huna. Ma'aseh Rabban Gamliel. There was a ma'aseh with Rabban Gamliel. Shesime es ein tevi avdo. Rabban Gamliel's famous Eved Tevi. Now Rabban Gamliel plopped out Tevi's eye. Vayosameach simcha gedola. And Rabban Gamliel was ecstatic. I don't know about Tevi, but Rabban Gamliel was ecstatic. Mitzol Rabbi Yoshua. And he finds Rabbi Yoshua. Omar lo. And Rabban Gamliel is so excited and he tells Rabbi Yoshua, he was so happy for his Eved Tevi. I mean, granted he lost his eye, which is kind of shvach, but kind of shver, but he's free. But he's free. And I think Rashi, does Rashi point out epis over here? Where am I? Because Tevi, as we know from Masechta Brachos, was an Eved kosher. He was a good fellow. And Gamliel wanted to free. I'm reading Rashi. Wanted to free Tevi. He didn't want Tevi to be an Eved. Right? I believe is the pasuk. Right? So you can't just be Meshacher and Eved. You're over be'eseh. So he wanted Tevi to be free. But he also didn't want to violate a mitzvah essay. But once Tevi's eye got plopped out, so then Rabban Gamliel was very excited. Givaldig, Tevi goes free. And he was so excited, he couldn't contain his happiness. And he found Rabbi Yoshua. He says, Rabbi Yoshua, did you hear? I plopped out Tevi's eye, and now he's free. The thing is, he was be'etzim just Moda B'Knas. He just admitted that he plopped out his Eved's eye. Now the knas, the fine for plopping out your Eved's eye, is that the Eved now goes free. So on the one hand, Rabban Gamliel is so excited, he's so happy for Tevi. On the other hand, he's admitting that he plopped out his eye. So he's being Moda B'Knas. Moda B'Knas is potter. So actually, we don't fine him and we don't say, now Tevi goes free. So actually, Tevi doesn't go free. So again, so 4 lines from the bottom. Mitzol Rabbi Yoshua, Rabbi Gamliel finds Rabbi Yoshua. Amrlo, he says to Rabbi Yoshua, Yata Yodea sheTevi Abdi Yotze Lecheres. How incredible is this? Tevi is a free fellow. Amrlo, Rabbi Yoshua says to Rabbi Gamliel, wait a second, hold your horses. Lama. Why is he free? I plopped out his eye. So Rabbi Yoshua says that what you're saying is irrelevant. He does not go free shekvar ein lo edim, because there are no witnesses to prove you wrong. Right? Meaning, Rabbi Yoshua says, look, Rabbi Gamliel, you just admitted that you plopped out Tevi's eye, you mowed the b'knas, you're potter, Tevi doesn't go free, and there are no witnesses coming to testify to that effect. To testify to that effect. Where am I? Shekvar ein lo edim, hayesh lo edim chayav, implying that if after Rabbi Gamliel admits to having plopped out Tevi's eye, witnesses would come, right? So meaning Rabbi Yoshua is saying is, because you're modeh b'knas, you're potter, and Tevi doesn't actually go free. And there are no witnesses who are coming to say that you plopped out his eye, implying that if there were witnesses that came, that meaning after Rabbi Gamliel was modeh, after he admitted that he plopped out Tevi's eye, witnesses then came and said he plopped out Tevi's eye, so then we would find Rabbi Gamliel and Tevi goes free. But because there aren't witnesses testifying about that, and Rabbi Gamliel is modeh on his own, so he's modeh b'knas, so he's potter from freeing Tevi, so Tevi doesn't go free. But implying that if witnesses come after he's modeh, so they'd be chayev. V'shamina mina modeh b'knas v'achar kach ba'u edim chayev ha. So we learn, therefore, that modeh b'knas v'achar kach ba'u edim is chayev. So it's a kasha on Rav Huna Amar Rav, who says modeh b'knas v'achar kach ba'u edim potter. Omerle, so Rav Huna responds, meh, shiny Rabbi Gamliel dilo bifnei bezdin odi. So, no, the only reason why if witnesses would come after the fact, they would be mechayev him, is only because, where did he admit this? He admitted it to Rabbi Yoshua, in Shuk Machne Yehuda, in some random place. So therefore, that's why his admission is not considered strong enough. But if he were to have admitted that in court, so then no witnesses would be able to override him. But what do you mean it wasn't in court? Rabbi Yoshua was the head of the court. So Shalom b'fnei bezdin hava. Maybe he was the head of the court, but he wasn't in the court at the time. And therefore, because this happened after outside of bezdin, that's why witnesses can come and be mechayev him. But if it was in court, argues Rav Huna, modeh b'knas would be final, even if achar kach ba'u edim potter. V'atanya or Tanya Idoch, we have a different brisa. Omar lo. So Rabbi Yeshua responds to Rabbi Gamliel, ein b'dvarecha klum shekvar hodisa. That Rabbi Yeshua says that Tevi does not go free because you're a modeh b'knas, implying that even if witnesses come later, it doesn't matter, potter. So this would be in support of Rav Huna, that Rabbi Yeshua says to Rabbi Gamliel, look, actually Tevi doesn't go free because since you admitted it, so modeh b'knas is potter, and that's that, right? Even if witnesses would come later, it wouldn't make any difference. Tevi would not go free. My love, Tanoi. So let's say that it's taka a machlekes tanoim about modeh b'knas v'achar kach ba'u edim chayev or modeh b'knas v'achar kach ba'u edim potter. Haytana de Omar shekvar ein licha edim. The first brisa where Rabbi Yoshua says to Rabbi Gamliel that Tevi does not go free because modeh b'knas is potter, and there are no witnesses, implying that if there were witnesses, so then he would go free, then chayev. So modeh b'knas v'achar kach ba'u edim chayev. So the first brisa holds that modeh b'knas v'achar kach ba'u edim chayev. V'hai tana, and the second brisa, d'amar shekvar hodisa, that since you already admitted you're modeh b'knas, zeu. Even if witnesses come later, it won't make a difference. So modeh b'knas v'achar kach ba'u edim potter holds that modeh b'knas, if a fellow admits the knas, even if witnesses come later, potter lo, we say nisht. D'chuli ama modeh b'knas v'achar kach ba'u edim potter. Now everyone agrees that modeh b'knas v'achar kach ba'u edim is potter like Rav Huna Amar Rav. Okay. And this is simply the machlokes. The first brisa, which says that there are no witnesses, implying that if there were witnesses, then he would be chayav. Right? It's like we said, well, because this encounter happened outside of Bezdin, so he was mod b'knas outside of Bezdin. That's why witnesses, if they come, can be mechayavim. And the brisa which says that since you already were moda, he will never go free, even if witnesses came. That brisa assumes that this encounter happened in Bezdin, and moda b'knas potter, even if witnesses come later. And since it was in Bezdin, it was official, and he would be potter, and Tevi would not go free. Itmar was stated, moda b'knas v'achakach bo edim ho. So when it comes to moda b'knas v'achakach bo edim, Rav, of course, Omar potter. Right, as we said, right? Rafuna says the name of Rav, potter. Ushmuel Omar chayev. Shmuel says moda b'knas v'achakach bo edim chayev. I kind of wish that I had more coffee. Wait, should I do a Bible stretch? 1 second. I already had 2 coffees. I'm like mamish at the end of this one. I'm trying to find the final sips. Alright. Okay, so Rav says the moda b'knas v'achakach bo edim is potter. Shmuel says moda b'knas v'achakach bo edim chayev. Omar Rove bar Ahiloi says Rove bar Ahiloi. Now we have seen this before on Daf Samach Dalet 10 days ago, 11 days ago, a week and a half ago. Okay, so Amar Rav bar Ahiloi, my time in the Rav. How come Rav says moda b'knas v'achakach bo edim is potter? Because, as we saw the other day, emimotze bo edim timotze b'dayonim, that be'etzem you need to find with witnesses and judges. Prat Mashiach Satzma, to the exclusion of somebody who's Mashiach himself, i.e. moda b'knas. If you're moda b'knas, then you can be potter, and that was in the context of kefel. So we say that moda b'knas by kefel is potter. Right? Moda b'knas is potter. But lamali, why do I need this pasuk of Yimotze Timotze? Me asher yashiun nafka. Right? It says asher yashiun Elohim, that Bezdin is Mashiach to the exclusion of Mashiach Esatzmo. So we seem to have 2 psukim that are saying that moda b'knas is potter. Why do I need 2 psukim? Shouldn't 1 be enough? Ella shmamina moda b'knas v'achakach bo edim potter. Rather, it means that moda b'knas. So what it's saying is moda. So we have 2 psukim. One pasuk is teaching that moda b'knas is potter. The other pasuk is teaching is that even moda b'knas v'achakach bo edim is still potter. Okay, so we have 2 psukim, and therefore we learn out 2 things. One being moda b'knas is potter, and the other one being moda b'knas v'achakach bo edim is also potter. That is the opinion of Rav. Ushmuel Amar, and says Ushmuel Amar lach. Shmuel will say to you, Hahu mi boile leganiv atzmo. Remember, Shmuel says that would say that no, imimatze timatze is needed to teach that the Ganiv himself is chayiv kefel, as opposed to what was it? I think was it a goniv? I don't think it was a goniv achar a ganav. I think it was what was that thing where you claim toin tainas ganif? I think that was what it was, right? So if according to the opinion that what was it im yimotze aganiv, right? And right, im yimotze aganiv and im lo yimotze aganiv, something like that. Those are both talking about toin tainas ganif. So then how do you know the ganif himself? So from im himatze timatze, and if you learn that from himatze timatze, so then you only have 1 pasuk of Asher Yushin Elohim to learn out moda b'knas is potter. So all we know is moda b'knas is potter, but moda b'knas v'achakach bo edim is chayiv. Okay? So again, so says Shmuel, right? So Shmuel Amar, lach to you, will say to you, Hahu, the pasuk of Himatzi Timatzi mi boile leganif atzmo is needed for the ganif himself to say that he would be chayiv kefil k'tetane devei Chizkiah, like the Tane devei Chizkiah. Eisvei Rav Lishmuel. Rav asks Akasha on Shmuel. Ra'a Edim Shememashma Shemuvoim. If Shimon sees that the witnesses are coming, and he's like, dag nabbit, right? Shimon stole Reuven's ox. He thought he was going to get away with it, and now he sees that the witnesses are coming, and he's like, dag nabbit. V'amar ganavti. And he says, okay, fine, I stole it. So he's admitting that he stole it. But I did not tavach. So the assumption is that the witnesses then came and testified right after that, right? I mean, he saw the witnesses were coming, he quickly admitted it. Then the witnesses came and, of course, testified that he stole it. And we're saying, Einu Mishal Melech Keren, i.e., he doesn't have to pay kefil. He only pays Keren. Doesn't pay kefil, doesn't pay dalvei. So he only pays Keren. So we see that Moda b'knas v'achakach bo edim potter. Amar lei, so Shmuel says, nah. Hachav ma'iskinun kigon shechazu edim lachreim. It was a false alarm. That's why he doesn't pay kefil. Meaning, Shimon got all scared for nothing. He saw the witnesses coming. He thought for sure they were coming to testify against him. He quickly admitted it. And it turns out that they didn't end up coming. If they would have come, Shmuel would say that he would be chayiv to pay kefil because Moda b'knas v'chakach bo edim is chayiv according to Shmuel. V'ha miditani seifa, but it says in the seifa, Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon Omer Yavo Edim v'ya'idu, that the edim should come and testify, and then he will have to pay kefil. Meaning, Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon's opinion is that Moda b'knas v'chakach bo edim is chayiv, michlal implying the BavaKama, that the BavaKama upon whom Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon is arguing, Savar Lo says nisht, that Moda b'knas v'chakach bo edim is potter. Meaning, Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon says that Moda b'knas v'chakach bo edim is chayiv. The BavaKama, however, says Moda b'knas v'chakach bo edim is potter. So Shmuel wanted to say that even the BavaKama is saying Moda b'knas v'chakach bo edim is chayiv. No reason that is potter is because the edim didn't actually come. But from the fact that the Sefer Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon is arguing and Be'etzim saying Moda b'knas v'chakach bo edim is chayiv, implies that the BavaKama says Moda b'knas v'chakach bo edim is potter. So Amarle Shmuel. So Shmuel says Lavika Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon dekai kavase. Okay, but still, I mean, Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon seems to be saying what I'm saying, that Moda b'knas v'chakach bo edim is chayiv. Ana da'amri Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon. I hold like Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon. The Shmuel v'adeh tanoihi. So now, according to Shmuel, this is definitely machlokas tanoim. The Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon holds Moda b'knas v'chakach bo edim is chayiv, and the BavaKama holds Moda b'knas v'chakach bo edim is potter. But l'Rav milema tanoi. But according to Rav, who says Moda b'knas v'chakach bo edim is potter, he can argue that both the BavaKama and even Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon agree with him that Moda b'knas v'chakach bo edim is potter. Well, then why does Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon say that if the witnesses come, he would be chayav? So Amalach Rav would say on the Amrei Afil Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon, that even Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon agrees with me that Moda b'knas v'chakach bo edim is potter. Ad kan lo ka'am Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon awesome. And the only reason why Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon says over there that he'd be chayav, that if the witnesses come, he'd be chayiv to pay kefil. El mishum dika modei machmas bi'asusa de edim. Well, because in that brayse it's talking about where Shimon saw that the witnesses were coming. But it explicitly said Shimon saw that the witnesses were coming, and therefore he quickly had to make a decision. He quickly therefore decided that he's just going to admit it and pay the Keren before the witnesses arrive. So Rav's opinion is that Moda b'knas v'chakach bo edim potter, and that's what the BavaKama seems to be saying as well. But Rabbi Elazar and even says Rav that even Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon would admit that in general Moda b'knas v'chakach bo edim is potter. The only reason why he says over here they're chayiv is because the only reason why Shimon admitted it was because he saw the witness is coming, so it wasn't really sincere. He wasn't really admitting it because he wanted to sort of pay back Reuven. He was admitting it because he thought he was going to have to pay Kefel, so it was really just to save the Kefel. So because he only admitted it when he saw the witnesses coming, that is why, argues Rav, that is why Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon says that he's going to be chayiv. But in general, Rav would argue that even Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon would say that if it was unsolicited, he simply just came and admitted his wrongdoing, Moda b'knas v'achakach bo edim is patar val hacha. But in general, the Moda me'atzmo, that he admits on his own, afilu, Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon Moda, even Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon would say, Moda b'knas v'achakach bo edim patar. So now we get to an interesting distinction here about Rav's opinion. Right, that Rav says Moda b'knas v'achakach bo edim is pater. So now we get to an interesting distinction over here. You ready for the interesting distinction? Omer Rav Amnuna says, Rav Amnuna mestavra milse de Rav. I understand Rav's position that Moda b'knas v'achakach bo edim is pater. Interesting. 1 second. I understand Rav's position that Moda b'knas v'achakach bo edim is pater. Be'omer ganavti, when I say, if he says that if he admits to stealing it, so he's being mechayev himself to pay the Karen at least, uvo edim shegonav, and then witnesses come and say, yes, Shimon did in fact steal Reuven's ox, pater. Okay, so he's pater in kefel, he already admitted it. Rav says, Moda b'knas v'achakach bo edim pater. Look, he came forward, he admitted his wrongdoing, Shimon admitted that he stole Reuven's ox. He now needs to pay Reuven the value of his ox, Karen. He's not going to be chayiv kefel since he's Moda b'knas, so he's pater. But since he comes to Bezdin and he admits that he stole, and he's chayiv now to pay back the value to Reuven, so then, even if witnesses come afterwards, Rav would say, Moda b'knas v'achakach bo edim pater, look, the fellow came forth, he was mechayiv himself to pay Karen, he's going to be pater, even if witnesses come. Aval, Omar lo ganavti, uvo edim shegonav, if he says, I didn't steal Reuven's ox, and then witnesses come and prove and testify that he did steal Reuven's ox, so now he's chayiv to pay kefel, he wasn't mechayev himself to pay anything. He said that he didn't steal anything. Witnesses came and testified that he did, and that's why he's chayev to pay, but he didn't come forward and admit anything that would be mechayev him to pay anything. And then after the witnesses came and said that he stole, he then admits, you know what? Also tavachti umacharti. I was oichet ashoichet. I also slaughtered or tavachtu machardit. So when he admits that he tavachtu machard, so then he should be pater from dalad v'hev, right, or from the additional 3 payments for the ox. And then witnesses come and testify that it's true that he did tavachu machard. In that case, listen up, chayav. Rav would say that he'd be chayav to pay the additional 3 payments. Sharei pater atzmo miklum, because he didn't. How do I define it literally? Shari pater atzmo miklu. He made himself pater from everything. I think that's the point. Meaning. So there's a distinction between admitting that you stole it and admitting that you slaughtered it or sold it. Right? There's a difference between the gnev and the tvicha mechira. When he admits that he stole it, so now he has to pay back Reuven the value of the ox, not double, but the value. Right? If he didn't come forth and no witnesses came, he wouldn't have had to pay Reuven anything. He comes forward, he says, I stole it, he has to pay Reuven back. So he's being mechayiv himself when he says that he stole it. When he admits simply that he tavach umachard it, so now he should be pater from paying the knas, he's not being mechayiv himself anything. All he's doing is saying, okay, if I just admit it, I don't have to pay anything. Right? The extra 3 payments will be cancelled because I admitted it. So because when he admits it, he's not being mechayev himself to anything, he's just freeing himself from liability. So in that case, if witnesses come afterwards, he'd be chayev to pay the dalad v'hei. Right? So meaning, when he admits to stealing it, and he's being mechayiv himself to Karen, so then we say, Moda b'knas v'achakach bo edim potter. Look, even if witnesses come later, he's potter from paying the kefel. He already admitted, he came forward on his own, and he's mechayiv himself Karen. He's going to be potter from kefel even if witnesses come. But when he admits, but in the scenario where he said, I didn't steal it, so he's denying everything. Witnesses come and say, you did steal it. So now he can't deny it anymore. You stole it. And then he says, okay, fine. You know what? I also tavach umachard. Okay, so by admitting that he did the tvicha mechir, he doesn't have to pay the additional 3 payments for the ox. But in that case, since he wasn't mechayiv himself anything, all he's doing is saying, basically, I did it, therefore I don't need to pay the additional 3 times. In that case, if 2 witnesses come and say that he tavach umachard, then he will have to, even Rav would say he will have to pay, since he wasn't mechayiv himself anything in his admission. You get it? Good. So let's read that again from the beginning. Rav Amnuna says, Rav Amnuna mistavra milsei de Rav. When Rav says Moda b'knas v'achakach bo edim is potter, it makes sense. But Omer gonavti, if he says that I stole it and he's being mechayiv himself to pay Karen, uvo edim shagonav, and then afterwards witnesses came and said that he stole it, potter is going to be potter from kefel sharei chayiv atzma b'Karen, because he was mechayiv himself Karen by his own admission. Aval Omer lo gonavti, but if he denied having stolen it, uvo edim shaganav, and then witnesses come and say, no, you did steal it. So now, okay, you can't deny it anymore. He stole it. He has to pay kefel. But then he says, okay, you know what? Even tavachtu macharti. Not only did okay, clearly we know he stole it. He says, I slaughtered it and I sold it, or I sold it. So now I don't need to pay the additional 3 payments. Uvo edim shetavach umachar, and then witnesses come and say that he tavach umachar chayav, then he will be chayav to pay the additional 3 payments. Sharei pater atzmo biklum, because he basically he's completely being poter himself. He's not being mischayiv himself to anything in that admission, and therefore if witnesses come afterwards, he's going to be chayiv. Omar Rava kol pachti l'sovei devei Rav, says Rava, I proved wrong the elders of the Beis Medrash of Rav. I guess we're assuming that Rav Huna was a student of Rav. Rav Amnuna was a student of Rav. I think there were 2 Rav Amnunas. So I guess this is the one who was a student of Rav. The Har Rabbi Gamliel poter atzmo miklum hava v'ka'amr le Rav Chizda le Rav Huna v'lo kamishane le. So it says Rava, interestingly, going back to the anecdote with Rabbi Gamliel and Tevi and Rabbi Yoshua. What happened? Rabbi Gamliel plopped out Tevi's eye. He goes to Rabbi Yoshua. He says, Givaldig, happy day. Tevi is a free fellow. So he's Moda b'knas. Rabbi Yoshua then says, if witnesses come, you're going to be chayav. Implying Moda b'knas v'achakach bo edim chayav. So Rav Huna, how does Rav Huna answer that? Because Rav Huna, Amar Rav, Moda b'knas v'achakach bo edim is potter. How does Rav Huna answer it? He answers it by saying, he's only be chayiv if witnesses come because it was outside of Bezdin. But says Rava that if what Rav Amnuna is saying is true, that there's a distinction between when he's being mechayiv himself epis and when he's not, well then, Rav Huna should have answered that, in that case, the reason why if witnesses come, he will be chayiv is because by saying that he plopped out Tevi's eye, he's not being mechayiv himself. He's not being mechayiv himself anything, right? I mean, it's a funny scenario because Rabbi Gamliel was excited that Tevi went free, but Rabbi Yeshua is basically reminding him that Tevi doesn't go free because since you're being Moda b'knas, you're admitting that you plopped out his eye, so he actually doesn't go free, right? So he's not being mechayiv himself anything. All he's saying is, I plopped out Tevi's eye, right? Again, Rabbi Gamliel was happy that he goes free, but in a normal circumstance, right? The point is, if he admits that he plops out Tevi's eye, he wouldn't go free, right? Because it's a fine that Eved would go free. So it's being Moda b'knas, he's potter. So in that case, he's not being mechayiv himself anything. By admitting it, he gets to hold on to his Eved. And Rabbi Yoshua says, if witnesses come, you're going to be chayiv to release your Eved. So Rav Huna, who's trying to say Moda b'knas v'chakach bo edim is potter, if what Rav Amnuna is saying is right, what Rav Huna should have said is that, the reason why if witnesses come, he would be chayiv because he's not being mechayiv himself anything. All he's doing is he's admitting that that he plopped out his Eved's eye, and therefore the Eved doesn't go potter because I'm admitting it. So when witnesses come afterwards and say that he plopped out the eye, then the Eved would go free because he wasn't being mechayiv himself anything. But that's not how Rav Huna answers it. Instead, Rav Huna says no, it's because he was outside of Bezdin. That's why if witnesses come, he would be mechayiv. So Rave wants to say that from the fact that Rav Huna did not answer by saying that he would be chayiv because Rabbi Gamliel would be chayiv because he wasn't mechayiv himself anything. So clearly that's not an avenue that is a real avenue. Wow. Chaver, even while I was explaining it, I was thinking this is going to be a hard thing to wrap your head around that proof. But sorry, it is what it is. Even just the whole thing with Rabbi Gamliel is complicated because normally, I guess the assumption is that an adon would not want. It's a punishment to release your eved, right? It's like you plop out the eved's eye. We punish you by freeing him. What is very sweet, but also makes it a little bit complicated here, is that Rabbi Gamliel actually was happy to release his eved, and it was by saying. So it's weird by admitting. Rabbi Gamliel didn't realize that by admitting that he plopped out Tevi's eye, he actually wouldn't go free. Anyways, whatever. So Amar Rav says, Rav kapachti le Rav. I sort of have proven Rav. I have a proof against Rav Amnuna, who makes this distinction between whether he's being mechayiv himself or not. The Rabbi Gamliel poter atzmo miklum hava. The Rabbi Gamliel, by admitting that he plopped out Tevi's eye. So then, so we're saying that he would not have to free Tevi, and he's not being mechayiv himself anything, he's just holding on to his eved. The Karmeli Rav Chizda Rav Huna, and Rav Chizda says to Rav Huna that, Rabbi Yoshua had said that be'etzem moed b'knas v'achakach ba'odim would be chayiv, v'lo kol mishani lei, and Rabbi Gamliel and Rav Huna does not answer Rav Chizda by saying, that's because Rabbi Gamliel was not being mechayiv himself anything. Instead he says, no, it's because you're outside of Bezin. So clearly this distinction about whether or not you're mechayiv yourself seems to be irrelevant. Itmar Nami, we have a statement supporting Rav Hamnuna that this distinction of if he's mechayiv himself is chayiv v'kayim is alive, is a real thing. Itmar Nami Amar B'chia bar Abba Amar B'yochanan Gonavti. If a fellow says, I stole, uvo edim shagonav, and then witnesses come and corroborate that he stole potter, he doesn't have to pay. Kefil sharei chiyav atzmo b'keren, because he was mechayev himself in keren, and that's why moda b'knas v'chakach bo edim potter avol. But Omar logonavti, if it says, I didn't steal, uvo edim shagonav, and witnesses come and testify that he did steal, v'choz v'amar and then he admits to the tvicha mechira, and the witnesses come and say that he stole chayav, that he's tavach umachar chayav, he would be chayav dal vei sharei pater atzmo miklum, because he wasn't being mechayav himself anything by admitting to the tvicha mechira, and if witnesses come, he will be chayav to pay dalad vehei. Wow, I wasn't sure if this was going to be an hour daf. I think that this. We're not even on. What are we? Are we 45 minutes already into the daf? We're not even on daf Ayin Hamud Beis. Daf Ayin Hamud Beis is much bigger than daf Ayin Hamud Aleph. I think this is going to be over an hour. Let's see. I guess we'll find out. This one might be over an hour. Yesterday was kimat an hour. It was 59 minutes. I think this might push it over the tipping point. Amar Ravashi. Says Ravashi, Masnisin uvraise nami deka. And we can also infer from our Mishnah and from a Braise this distinction of if he's being mechayiv himself epis or not. Masnisin, our Mishnah, the Tanan, as we learn in the Mishnah, it's a good thing that Daf Ayin Zayin is vacation day. We deserve it. When's the last time we had a daf that was over an hour? I can't remember. So Ravashi Masnisin uvraisa nami deka. Masnisin, our Mishnah the Tanan, it says in our Mishnah, Gonav al pishnayim. If two witnesses say that Shimon stole Reuven's ox, v'tovach u'mocher al pi eid echad, and then one witness testifies about the tvicha mechira, or al pi atzmo, or he himself admits about the tvicha mechira, mishalim tashlumei kefel, so he pays kefel because the witnesses were mechayev him. Ve'eno mishalim tashlumei arba v'chamisha, but he doesn't pay arba v'chamisha because mod b'kanas is potter. So lamali detani ganav al pi shnayim. Why did we have to say that two witnesses testified that he stole? Lesne, let's just say the whole thing is talking about him, just him. Ganav v'tovach mocher al pi eid echad or al pi atzmo. That if he stole any tavach mocher, but there was only one witness who testified against him, or he admitted to the whole thing, einu mishalim ela keren, so he would only have to pay keren. Right? Why are we talking about a scenario where two witnesses testified that he stole? He then admitted that he tavach u'machard, and we're saying he pays kefal but not alvei. Why don't we give a scenario where he admitted the whole thing? That he stole, that he slaughtered, and we would say that he'd only be chayav to pay keren, but nothing else. So elalav, the reason why we're talking about a scenario where basically he did not admit to the Geneva, two witnesses testified against him regarding the Geneva, is because Hakamashma, what it's teaching us, is like we said at the beginning of the Gemara, Gonav al pi shnayim, that if he stole, if two witnesses says that he stole the ox, v'tovach al pi eid echad or al pi atzmo, and he slaughtered it either with one witness or his own admission, Dilo mechayev, skip the word who. Dilo mechayev atzmo b'keren, that he was not mechayev himself anything. Two witnesses testified against him that he stole it. That's why he never came forth and said I stole it. So he was never mechayev himself anything. So who the amrina, and that is when we say al pi atzmo dumya de al pi eid echad, like we learned at the beginning of the Gemara, that we compare al pi atzmo to al pi eid echad, ma al pi eid echad. Just like when one witness testifies about the tvicha mechira, ki asi eid echad, when a second witness comes, mitzdarv by they will join together with the first witness, mechayev, and then he will be chayev pedalvei. Al pi atzmo nami oichit al pi atzmo, when he by his own admission, ki asu eidim mechayev, when witnesses, if witnesses come after the fact, he will be chayev. But that's only because he never admitted to anything, right? Meaning, because two witnesses came and testified that he stole, and only after that did he admit that he tavach u'machard, but he never admitted to anything that would be mechayev himself. So after he admits that he tavach u'machard, if two witnesses come after that and testify that he tavach u'machard, he would be chayev because he was never mechayev himself anything. Aval. But if one witness or al pi atzmo, or he himself admitted that he stole and he slaughtered or he sold it, that he was mechayev himself in keren, well then lo amrinon al pi atzmo dumid al pi eid echad, then we would not make this comparison to say that just like al pi eid echad, when another joins him, he'd be chayev. So also al pi atzmo, if witnesses come afterwards, he'd be chayev. No, if he admits to the theft, so he's mechayev himself for the keren, well then moed b'knas v'chakach bo edim are going to be potter. But if he did not admit to anything, then moed b'knas v'chakach bo edim is chayev. Okay, and finally, Braise Detanya. We have also this proof from a Braise, the Tanya that we learned in a Braise, that he saw that witnesses were coming, and he quickly admits, Ganavti, I stole it, avalo tavachti v'lo macharti, but I did not tavach u'machar. Eino mishalem elo keren, he only needs to pay keren. Lamli lemisna v'omar ganavti avalo tavachti v'lo macharti. Why does he have to say that I stole it, that he admits that he stole it, but he didn't steal it or sell it? Nisne, what it should say, what does the Gos Sabach say? Where am I? Nisne gonavti. Where am I? Nisne gonavti o tavachti umacharti. What he should say wait, where am I? Where am I? The last thin line. Why does it have to say that I stole it, but I didn't? I stole it, but I didn't. Tvicha umechira. Nesne gonavti. Oh, tavachti umacharti. Say, I stole it, or I slaughtered or sold it. Elo Kamashma, what it's teaching us is Taima de Omar Ganavti. What's the goes about here? Ganavti, that when he says Davka, because he says that he stole it, the Chiev Atzmo Bikerin, who departed. There's a lot of goes about over here. That's specifically because he admitted that he stole it. That is why, because since he was Mechayim himself with Karen, Aval Omar lo ganavti, but if he would have said that he didn't steal it, and then witnesses came and said that he stole it, so he never admitted to anything, and then and then he says, I stole it, or I sold it, and then witnesses came, that he was never Mechayim himself anything, Chayav, he would be Chayav, Am Odah the Tvicha, Lav Odah he. So we see that the Odah of the Tvicha would not be considered a proper Odah because Moed B'Knas V'Chakach Ba'odim would be Chayav. Wow. Meaning it says that he Davka, right, he says Ganav, he says I admitted it. V'lo Tavachti Umacharti, right? Meaning we're saying that he admitted to the Geneva, but not the Tvicha Mechira. They said, why couldn't it say that he admitted to the Geneva or the Tvicha Mechira? Meaning, even if he didn't admit to the Geneva, but other witnesses came and testified that he stole it, but he did admit to the Tvicha Mechira, he would only be Chayiv, right? He would be Potter. We don't say that because in that case he would, if witnesses came, he would be Chayiv, since he wasn't being Chayiv himself anything. Amri, they say, they say, no, he Gufa Kamashman is coming to teach us the Chaven de Omer Ganavti, that since he says that he stole it, Afagav de Omer lo Tavachti v'lo Macharti, even though he says I didn't steal or sell it, Uvo Edim Shetavachu Machar, and then witnesses came that he Tavachu Machar, Potter, he would be Chayiv from the additional 3 payments. My time will come, Tashlumi Chamisha Omer Achmana, v'lo Tashlumi Arba, v'lo Tashlumi Shlosha. Right? So what it's saying is that when he admits that he stole it, so when he admits that he stole it, so he's only Chayiv Karen, he's Potter from Kefel. So then when he denies that he Tavachu Machar, but then witnesses came and say that he Tavachu Machar, he would be Potter from paying the additional 3 payments, because since he admitted to the Geneva, so it'd only be Chayiv Karen, but not the Kefel. So that second payment is cancelled out. The additional 3 payments would only be a total of 4, but for a cow it's a total of 5. There's no such thing as 4 payments for a cow. So once he admits to the Geneva, so then he's Potter for Kefel. Once he's Potter from Kefel, so there's no, then there's never going to be Dal V'Hei at that point, since he already admitted to the Kefel. Chevra, I'm going to stop here, because I think we're basically, what are we at, like 50 minutes, almost an hour already? We still have so much more left to do on this stuff, and I haven't reviewed it yet. So I'm actually kind of, in a sense, like happy in a sense I didn't review it yet, because I'm so exhausted. I don't know how I would keep on screaming and yelling for like another, I don't even know how long this is going to take. But I'm going to stop here. I'm going to pick it up, I think, either in the afternoon or tomorrow morning or something. We're going to have to finish this daf. This is going to be freaking long. And then, yeah, okay. All right, I'll see you soon. All right, Chevra, I'm back. Chevra, you're in big trouble. Because I'll tell you, Chevra. We're like an hour into this daf. Now, normally, I would be tired by now. I've been babbling for an hour. I just want to get through it. Not now. Not now, because I went to a chasna the other night, so I didn't have time to review the whole daf, of course. So I had to stop after I got as far as I got. Chevra, I'm not trying to finish. I'm trying to start. Chevra, this is going to be a long daf. I bet there's another half an hour left. Oof. Alright, let's go weiter. I got coffee over here. The good thing is I think I've been saying for a while that Daf Ein Zayin is going to be vacation day. I actually think that Daf Ein Vav, I think, is going to be vacation day. All these dafs are so weird. They're big. Okay, I got coffee here, and I also want to go weiter because we're in the middle of a daf. Let's say that this inyan of That this inyan of Mod b'knas v'achar kach bo edim, potter, and so Rav says Mod b'knas v'achar kach bo edim is potter. The shaila is that always, or does he have to at least be mechayiv himself epis in order to be potter when the witnesses come? So let's say it's taka machloikes tanoim hoyu shnayim meidin shegonav. Okay, so you have one set of witnesses that testify that Shimon stole Ruvain's ox, and then a second set of witnesses testify that Shimon tovachu mocher Ruvain's ox. Huzmu eidei kneva. Now, if the first set of witnesses who testified that Shimon stole Ruvain's ox, if they become Eidim Zomimin, which means that we no longer have any testimony about the theft, well then the whole thing falls apart, right? Well, once the testimony fell apart vis-a-vis the theft, it's completely, the whole thing falls apart, even for the Tvicha Mechira, because, there's nothing wrong with slaughtering or selling an animal. There's only something wrong with it if you stole it. But once already we're saying we no longer have testimony about the theft, so then the fact that you have two people who say that he slaughtered or sold an animal, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. So Eidu Shabbat Muktasabat Lakula, the whole Eidus kind of unravels. Okay, I'm going to try a tricky kind of maneuver here, which is to drink coffee while also not losing my place. Let's see how I do here. Okay, took a sip of coffee and boom, found it. Huzmu, Eidei Tvicha. Now what if it's fakert? If the Eidei Tvicha are the ones who become Eidim Zomim, so we still have valid testimony about the Geneva, but the Eidei Tvicha end up becoming Eidim Zomimin. So, Hu Mishalim Tashlume Kefel. So Shimon still has to pay Kefel because the testimony about the theft remains intact. So he's a thief, he has to pay kefel, but behein misham tashlume shlosha. But the second set of witnesses are Eidim Zomin. They were trying to be mechayev Shimon to pay an additional 3 times payment. So they need to pay Shimon a 3 times payment. So Shimon pays Ruvain kefel for having stolen his ox. And then the second set of witnesses who testified that Shimon slaughtered the ox, but it turns out that they're Eidim Zomin, they have to pay Shimon 3 times the value of the ox that they alleged that he slaughtered after having stolen it. Mishum sumchis amu. So now they say epis from sumchis, and this now becomes basically the arichas till the end of the daf. I'm taking more coffee. Okay, coffee check. Place found. Weiter. Mishum sumchis amu. They said from sumchis, hein mishalmin tashlume kefel, that the first set of witnesses have to pay kefel, vehu mishalim tashlume shlosha lapar v'shnayim la'ayil, and then depending on if it was an ox or a ram, he will pay 3 times. Shimon will pay 3 times for the ox or 2 times for the ram, right? Because it's dalud v'hei. Dalud would be for a ram, hey would be for an ox. So Sumchis is saying that the first set pays kefel, and Shimon has to pay the remaining, multiples. So Aheya. So what is Sumchis referring to? Is he referring to when the first group becomes Eidim Zomim? He's talking about when the second set becomes Eidim Zomim. Just in terms of group versus set, they're the same exact thing. I just prefer to say set, but sometimes I accidentally say group. So Aheya Koi, what are they referring to? Aheya Koi Sumchis, what's Sumchis referring to? Ilema Areshe Pararam. If we're talking about when the first set is Eidim Zomim, so they have to pay Shimon kefel. Okay, I get that. But why would Shimon have to pay Ruvain the remaining, let's assume it was an ox, so the remaining 3 times? Once the testimony unravels with regard to the theft, so then there's no longer any, Tvicha Mechira is no longer an issue that's going to be Mechayev Shimon 3 times payment. Leis le Sumchis, does Sumchis not hold of Eidus Shabbat L'Miktsasa Kula, that once the Eidos is unraveled with regard to to the theft, then there's nothing to talk about with regard to tvicha mechira. So why would he be chayiv the 3 times payment? Ve'ela aseifa. Okay, so if we're talking about the seifa where it's the second set, the tvicha mechira set, that becomes edim zomim. Well, if that's the case, then the rabbis seem to have gotten it right that Shimon needs to pay the kefil, and the second set needs to pay Shimon 3 times the amount. Shaper kamer rabbanon. The rabbanon got it right. Hu mishalim tashlumei kefil. Just like I just said, that Shimon has to pay kefil because the testimony stands with regard to his theft. Ve'hem mishalmin tashlumei shlosha, and the second set would need to pay 3 times the amount to Shimon. Ela milsa achrisai ika bei nayu. So rather, sumchus is referring to a different scenario. Kigon. The scenario is the following: the asu beitre, that one set of witnesses came, amrile, and they say to Shimon, ganavta. The set of witnesses says to Shimon, you stole Ruvain's ox. Amrulun, you know what Shimon says? Yes, ganavti. I'm a thief. I stole Ruvain's ox. Not only that, v'tavachti u'macharti. Not only am I a ganif, right? You're saying I'm a ganif. It's true, I'm a ganif. But not only am I a ganif, I'm oichet shoichet. I also slaughtered it. I also slaughtered the animal. Okay? So he says, yes, I'm a ganif, but I'm oichet shoichet. Miu lo b'fneichem ganavti. But then Shimon continues. But you're saying that you're testifying that I stole the animal. It's true that I stole Reuven's ox, but not in front of you people. V'aisi saide ve'azminu, and then Shimon proceeds to bring a second set of witnesses that says to the first set, Imanu ayisim b'makum ploni, de lo by payu gonav, that Shimon could not have possibly stolen the ox in front of the first set of witnesses, because Shimon brought witnesses who said Imanu ayisim b'makum ploni. They made the edim zomim. Wow. It doesn't end there, but like, where are we even so far? So remember, there's a first set of witnesses who says, Shimon, you're a ganif. Shimon says, it's true, I am a ganif, I'm oichet shoichet. And then he says, but I wasn't a ganif in front of you. You're not the ones who saw me steal. So he admits to stealing, and then he admits to more than that, but he also says, you people didn't actually see me steal. And then he brings edim who say, Manu ayisim b'makom ploni, and make them edim zomimin. V'aisi balabayis side, now comes Ruvain with his own witnesses, a third set of witnesses. V'asidu bei, and now they testify about Shimon, digona v'tavach u'macher, that he stole, and that he tavach u'macher, Wow, there is so much going on here. So, okay, in terms of the theft, there's so much going on here. So in terms of the theft, we have an interesting scenario, because there's so much going on here. In terms of Shimon's theft, so Shimon admitting that he stole only once that first group came and accused him of theft, so his hodah is irrelevant. And therefore, when Reuven's witnesses come and say that and testify correctly that Shimon stole Reuven's ox, so Shimon is going to have to pay kefel to Reuven, because Reuven brought witnesses that he stole. But at the same time, the first set of witnesses had accused Shimon of theft, and they ended up being edim zomim. So they need to pay kefel to Shimon. Shimon then pays that kefel to Reuven because he stole Reuven's ox. Now the shaila is, when Shimon had said to the first set of witnesses, it's true, I'm a ganif, and I'm a shoichet oichet. So the shaila is that considered a hodah that would make him potter from having to pay the remaining 3 payments? Because then Reuven ultimately brought witnesses who said, that he stole, but also that he slaughtered, right? He tavach umachar. So the shaila is, when he admitted about the tvicha, would that make him pay, right? Would that be moed b'knas as potter? Or would that be moed b'knas v'achakach bo edim and his chayv? So the chachamim are saying that he would be potter for that, because they would say moed b'knas v'achakach bo edim is potter, even though he's not being mechayiv himself anything when he admits to the tvicha mechira alone, because the admittance for the gneva was irrelevant. And whereas Sumcha says no, the admittance of the tvicha mechira is relevant, even though he's not being mechayiv himself anything, and therefore, wait, what? Oh man, did I just confuse myself? Meaning the Chachamim would say that he's potter from paying, even though he wasn't mechayiv himself anything, moed b'knas v'chakach ba'edim would be potter. Whereas Sumchus would say, well, since he is not being mechayiv himself anything, so even though he's moed b'knas, now when Reuven's witnesses come and say that he slaughtered it, he would be chayiv to pay. So let's read it inside. Uvados tvicha kamiflege. So the machlokes about the between the Chacham and Sumchus is with regard to the hodah about the tvicha. The Rabbanan Tzavei Afagad Hodah the Genev Machmas Eidim Hu the Kamodo Hodah the Tvicha Hodah he exactly Ufater exactly great. I'm going to read that again. The Rabbanan Tzavei that the rabbis say Afagad Hodah the Geneva Machmas Eidim Hu the Kamode, even though Shimon's Hodah about the theft is irrelevant because Shimon only admitted that once he was approached by the first set of witnesses, so that's irrelevant. But Hodah the Tvicha Hodah he. But when he said Amoichet Shoichet, when he said that he also slaughtered it, so that's a Hodah, and therefore he's potter from Knas, even though he's potter from Dalvei, even though he's not being mechayiv himself anything, because the Hodah of the Gneva was irrelevant. Ufater, but still the Hodah for the Tvicha Mechira is relevant, and he's going to be potter even when Reuven's witnesses come and say that he Tavach Umachar. V'Sumchis Sovar, where Sumchis says Kevon the Hodoya the Gneva Machmas Eidim Hu Dika Moide. So since the Hodah by the Gneva, he only admitted it, Shimon only admitted it because the first set of witnesses came and accused him of theft. So it's not an actual Hodah. It's not an actual Hodah, and he's not being mechayiv himself anything. So the Tvicha Lav Hodah, so therefore the Tvicha is also not a proper Hodah, and therefore he's going to be chayiv to pay for the Dal Vehei. Vanach Edim Kamoy de Azminu, and therefore the first set of witnesses who said that Shimon stole, and they ended up becoming Edim Zomimin, Mishal min Tashlume Kefel, so they pay Kefel to Shimon, and V'hu Mishalim, so they pay Kefel to Shimon, and then Shimon pays it to Reuven, if I'm not mistaken. V'hu Mishalim Shlosha Lapar V'shnaim La'ayil, and Sumchis says, therefore, because Shimon's Hodah about the Tvicha was not a good Hodah, so therefore he has to pay 3 times for an ox and 2 times for a ram. Wow. Okay. Rav Acha ber Dervika says Rav Acha ber Dervika lo nisht. Don't say that this is a machlokas about modeh b'knas v'chakach bo edim in a scenario where he's not admitting to anything. Tuchuli al modah de tvicha lav hodahi. No, everybody holds that the hoda'ah on the tvicha is not actually a hoda'ah. Okay, so then the shaila is, then why did the Rabbanan say that he's potter from paying dal v'hei? Ela be'edus she'i atoyochol la'azima ka miflegei. Rather, this is a separate machloikis. It's machloikis about edus she'i atoyochol la'azima. Friends, we had mentioned edus she'i atoyochol la'azima recently, right? That testimony is only admissible, is only acceptable if it's testimony that you could possibly make into Eidim Zomimim testimony. So now, as we're going to see in a few minutes, sort of generally speaking, that is a reference to the witnesses need to provide the place and time that they're of the event that they're testifying about, because if not, then they could say whatever they want and nobody can disprove them. Like the date and time is crucial information, because if they're liars, then people can come and say, wait, you're lying. You objectively could not have seen what you're testifying about because you were with us in a completely different place at that time, right? But here we're talking about a little bit of a different scenario, as we're going to see in a second. So Kigon, for example, the Asu Saide, the first set of witnesses came, V'amre, and they said, V'amre, and they say to Shimon, Ganavta, and they say to Shimon, you're a ganif. V'amr lahu, and Shimon says to them, Ganavti, he says, yes, I'm a ganif, v'tavachtu macharti, I'm a shoichet oichet. He admits to tvichu mechira. Miu, however, says Shimon, lo b'fneichem ganavti. I didn't steal in front of you people. Ela b'fnei ploni ufloni. Rather, I stole in front of a different set of witnesses. Ve'aisei saide ve'azminu, deloi b'payu gonav. And Shimon brings a second set of witnesses who make the first set Eidim Zomimim. Ve'osu ploni ufloni ve'asidu bei digona v'tavachu macher. And then Shimon brings the set of witnesses that he's saying he did in fact do this I guess crime. Is crime the right word? Offense, maybe, in front of them. And they testify that exactly what he said, that he stole it and that he tavachu machar. So wow. Okay, you hear the scenario? You have a first set of witnesses who approach Shimon and say, Shimon, you stole Reuven's ox. Shimon says, I did. Not only did I steal it, I also slaughtered it, or sold it. And then he continues and he says, but I didn't do these things in front of you. I did these things in front of a different set of witnesses. He then brings a set of witnesses who make the first one Eidim Zomimim. And then he brings the witnesses who he said that he did these things in front of, and they in fact testify that he stole and slaughtered. So according to the rabbis, so everyone essentially agrees that the Eidim Zomimim are going to have to pay kefel to Shimon because they said that he stole Reuven's ox, but they were Eidim Zomimim, so they have to pay kefel to Shimon. Shimon then needs to pay that to Reuven. Now, in terms of the additional 3 payments for the ox, so the Chachamim say, look, it's Eidu Shiyato Yochol Azima, right? If I understand correctly, the point is he's bringing witnesses and saying these are the witnesses that I stole and slaughtered in front of. So how are you going to throw that out? I mean, he's saying that, like, meaning the whole point of throwing out witnesses is that they're testifying against the guy and they're going to get him into trouble. He's the one bringing them. So I think that's the point. So meaning, how are you gonna, as it is, Eidim Zomimim is a chiddush, right? As we said the other day, right? The fact that a second set of witnesses comes and says simply, Imanu, right? The magic phrase, Imanu Yisem Makom Ploni, boom, all of a sudden they're gone. I mean, in this case where Shimon himself is saying, look, I did it, and I did it in front of these people, why would we trust another group to say, Imanu Yisem Makom Ploni? So therefore it's Eidu Shiatu Yochol Azima. So the Chacham say, these witnesses that Shimon himself is bringing are unusable, and therefore he's going to be chayiv. So there's a chiyuv kefel, but there's not going to be a chiyuv of daled v'hei. Whereas Sumchis says no, we can rely upon these witnesses, and therefore he's going to have to pay Dalit Vei. V'haka miflege, here's the machlokas. The Rabbanan Savi, the rabbis hold, Havila Eidos Shiatu Yochel Azima, V'chol Eidos Shiatu Yochel Azima Lo Havia Eidos. The Chacham say, look, these witnesses that Shimon is bringing, that he's claiming to have committed this offense in front of, it's Eidos Shiatu Yochel Azima. You can't make it Eidim Zomim, and therefore it's inadmissible, and he doesn't pay Dalit Vei. V'sumcha savar, where Sumcha says, I think this might be a shaila. V'sumcha savar edus she'atu yochel azima havya edus. No, maybe it's better as a statement. V'sumcha savar edus she'atu yochel azima havya edus. And Sumcha says that we could rely upon, nonetheless, we could rely upon these witnesses. V'hakaibalon the edus she'atu yochel azima lo havya edus. But I thought, don't we generally hold that edus she'atu yochel azima is not good testimony? That's like a classic edus thing. Eidos she'atu yochel azima is inadmissible. So the Gemara makes a very interesting chiluk over here, which is, look, when we say that, as I kind of referred to a few minutes ago, when we say that Eidos she'atu yochel azima is inadmissible, that's if it's missing important details like the time and place that that they're alleging that this happened, because it makes the testimony itself extremely suspicious, right? They're coming and testifying that Shimon did something, but they can't tell you when or where it was. That's extremely suspicious, right? Whereas if they testify and they say, yes, it happened at this time, in this place, well then, that's enough details that, right? If they're a bunch of liars, at least somebody else can come and say, you're liars because at that time and place you were with us somewhere else. Deleka le'edus klal. In that scenario, if they don't provide these important details, then there's no testimony at all. Havalacha sayuehu dekomisayile. But over here, right? I mean, Shimon is in lockstep with these edim, right? He's. It's unclear how to read that. They're supporting him, he's supporting them. But the point is that, right, they're entirely on board with Shimon. So we could trust them in this case. We said earlier, so we said that when the first set of witnesses who say that Shimon stole from Ruvain become Edim Zomim, so they have to pay kefel. The question is, why would they pay kefel? Since Ruvain admitted that he stole it, so he might not be chayiv for kefel, but at least Karen by Shalume, Shimon should have to pay the Karen to Ruvain. So then shouldn't the first set only have to pay the second payment, not the first payment? The first payment Shimon pays to Ruvain, so shouldn't they just have to pay the sort of second payment? So Rabbi Elazar Mishmei Derav Tni Tashlum Kefel. Yeah, don't say they pay both payments, but the second payment is what they pay. So Ruvain pays the first Shimon pays the first payment to Ruvain. The first set of witnesses pay the second payment to Shimon, and then Shimon, I guess, would or would not be chayiv for the remaining payments. Wow, Chevra, that was daf. Oh my God, I think this is probably like a hour 20 minutes, hour 30 minutes. Wow, Chevra. If I didn't go to the wedding the other night, it probably would have been shorter because I would have been tired. But as I get this, that's how life goes. All right, peace out.